Hey, everybody, what's going on? This is your man, Big B, Brian Hanley. Welcome to Steelers Almighty Scouting Report episode here of the Pittsburgh Steelers final regular season game against the Cincinnati Bengals. There is a lot on the line in this football game for both teams. Very, very important game. And we're going to go through, break down all the ins and outs and everything about this football game, man, because it's pretty intriguing, especially from the Steelers standpoint on what they can or can't do or maybe need or don't need to do. So we'll break all that down for you. Before we do, remember, as always, people, like, follow, subscribe, continue to get in those comments. As always, hit that notification bell so you know exactly when Steelers Almighty content comes out. Another added feature that Steelers Almighty that we got rolled out for you guys is memberships. Make sure you take a look at our memberships and all the things that we are going to bring to the table, man. So it's definitely a link that's going to be in the comments section of this video. If you don't see it on the front page there, it should be a button that you can hit to join. There's several different levels that you guys can get into. So we appreciate that, man. But let's get into this. So the quick overview, obviously we're playing the Cincinnati Bengals. The game is in Pittsburgh. It's going to be cold. I mean, 26 is the high for the day. Around kickoff, I would guess, because the game's at night, I would bet it's around 17 because that's the low for the day. So I'm going to guess somewhere around 17 degrees. It's going to be cold, a little breezy. You know how it is in Pittsburgh at this time of year, especially at night. No precipitation at the moment. Now, you know how weather is. It can always change at the drop of a dime. But as of now, just breezy, games at night. They say cloudy, but does it really matter if it's cloudy when it's dark out? I don't think that matters much at all. Either way, Cincinnati's favored. 1.5 over the Steelers, which has been a common theme here over the last month and a half of the season. Steelers have been underdogs during this stretch of football games. The over-under on this, again, that's sucker bet 48.5. I don't know that I like either of those. It's tricky. It's tricky. And they really think that the Bengals are going to win this game because the home team always gets 3 points. This is -1.5, so we'll see how that plays out. Going to the personnel, look, we know what the Bengals are. Joe Burrow. I mean, 4,641 yards, 42 touchdowns, 8 interceptions. I don't know how Joe Burrow, first of all, he's not in the MVP race because they've lost 8 games. I get it. You can't be the MVP of your team and you're constantly losing these games. Now, Joe Burrow is not the reason that the Bengals have lost these games. He is not. Just plain and simple. I know some people on ESPN are going to try to tell you that you can't turn over the ball, and they're right about that. But some of these turnovers, it's just like, what are you talking about, man? There's this, you can't see in the back of your head. It's just Joe Burrow is not the cause for the Bengals record. He's not. He's playing phenomenal. How he wasn't the Pro Bowl starter over Josh Allen is beyond me. I know what people are going to say. Well, Josh Allen's the MVP, which I don't think he should be, but that's a different conversation for a different day. I don't know how Joe Burrow wasn't the Pro Bowl starter, but I digress. Jamar Chase, on his way to the Triple Crown, best wide receiver in football. Hands down, best wide receiver in football. Some people are going to argue Justin Jefferson. I get it. I just believe Chase is more explosive. I think he's the better receiver. The man is having an incredible year. What's he got? 117 catches, over 1,600 yards, and 16 touchdowns. Phenomenal. And he plays with another top-tier wide receiver on his football team in T. Higgins. I get Higgins has been hurt some this year, but he always seems to get hurt. But either way, Jamar Chase is just the best receiver in football. Now, somebody that I don't know if he's going to play. We'll get to the injuries here in a minute. Chase Brown, running back, has been a godsend for them. They got rid of Joe Mixon in the offseason. They signed Zach Moss. Moss got hurt. Chase Brown stepped in, almost got 1,000 yards on the year. But the thing that he does extremely well, he's got 65 catches. 65 total catches, add another 360 yards to all of that. Chase Brown is exactly what you're looking for in a franchise. A guy that can run the football effectively because he's averaging 4.3 yards a carry. Again, the Bengals don't have the best offensive line. So he's able to find some space, probably because they throw the football a lot with what they have to do. Teams just can't stack the box. I get it. But he also catches the ball out of the backfield, does it very well. So they found one in Chase Brown. As far as the defensive side of the ball, we know Trey Hendrickson. Uh, what else am I going to 14 sacks. He's just that guy. He's got 16 tackles for loss. He is a handful, and he is a technician. He is an absolute technician, super strong. His hand fighting is incredible. His hand fighting and his lean is incredible. Going to be a handful for Dan Moore. We're going to need to give him some help. But just plain and simple, we're going to need to give Dan Moore Jr. some help. Also, on the defensive side of the ball, Jermaine Pratt kind of goes unnoticed. I know the Bengals defense isn't great. The linebacker that's got, 138 tackles, that's a lot of tackles. So he's doing his job there. 2 picks, 2 forced fumbles. And then Mike Milton, former Steeler, to me, again, he's not the greatest cover guy. He's just not. I mean, we get it. He's a slot corner, but he's got 12 tackles for loss this season. That's a lot from a defensive back. Now, again, I know he does a lot of blitzing. It's what he did in Pittsburgh. Does a lot of blitzing out of that nickel position and the slot position. But 12 tackles for a loss, I don't care what that's a lot for anybody, much less a defensive back. Free agency, look, the Sheldon Rankins thing that they brought in was a disaster. To be honest, I'm kind of worried about Sheldon Rankins because somebody to be out that long with an illness, what is it? And they're not telling you. Usually, if somebody has the flu, they'll tell you. Even when people had COVID, they would tell you. So something has to be going on. Or are they just designating this as an illness because they don't want him around? I don't think so, because I think he was playing fine. So Sheldon Rankins, again, D tackle, they brought him in, was playing pretty good. I'm not saying he was playing outstanding, but he was playing fine. But for him to be out this long, like I mentioned, I'm a little worried about him. I got a soft spot for him because he went to Louisville. You guys know I'm a diehard Louisville fan because that's where I'm from. But, yeah, I'm a little nervous because they're not telling you what the injury is. He's been out and for a long time. So that's disappointing, I'm sure, for the Bengals. But they brought in Von Bell. They brought in Geno Stone, 2 safety. They brought Von Bell back. That was one of the things that I know the Bengals, they were just like, they lost 2 safeties the year previous to free agency. I'm sure they thought they could sign one. I know they wanted to replace him in the draft. Didn't necessarily work out. So this is what they got currently. As far as our top draft picks, Marius Mims, up and down season. Was supposed to be one where he's just going to kind of watch behind Trent Brown, who they also brought in free agency. But I think any Bengals fan or just any NFL fan in general could have told you that Trent Brown was going to get hurt. That was his history. He stayed hurt. They brought him in, and lo and behold, he got hurt again. Again, you don't blame people for getting hurt, but their track record and their history kind of tells you something. And he got hurt again. Mims was forced into action, and it's been up and down. It's been up and down. A load of talents. Look, the Steelers can kind of relate to that. Broderick Jones, they came from the same school. And you can kind of relate to both of them. Big, physical, raw tackles with a ton of talent and athleticism, but just really raw at the position. It's literally the same guy. Same school, same guy. So I get that. Chris Jenkins, been a good, solid replacement again. He came in, and maybe he's going to learn behind, Sheldon Rankins. Rankins goes out, and then Jenkins has had to step in and play a lot more minutes and a lot more snaps, I should say, than maybe what people thought that he was going to have to play this year. But he's doing okay. Doing okay as a rookie. As far as injuries are concerned, look, I'll go through this. The Steelers got a lot, but some of these guys are coming back, like JPJ. Been a full practice, had a knee injury, coming back, full practice. Jaylen Warren, rib injury that he suffered, full practice. He'll be in the lineup. Ben Skoranek, same thing, had a hip. Looks like he's going to play because he was at full participant at practice. Justin Fields, he's been out a couple of weeks. He was the emergency back last week. Abdomen injury. He was full practice this week. Cole Holcomb. I had said that I didn't think Cole Holcomb, the way that his injury was, I wasn't sure he was ever going to even play football again. And that man not only proved me wrong, shut me up, proved a lot of people wrong that had the same opinion that I had. He's back at limited practice. Now, do I anticipate him playing one snap for the Pittsburgh Steelers this year? No, that's not going to happen. But for him to even come back and to be on the practice field this year, I think is a testament to him, the doctors, the trainers, everybody that worked with him. But his mental fortitude, because he easily could have just cashed this in and said, look, just get me back to where I can just walk again and I'm done. That's not what was in this man's plans. He wanted to get back on the football field, and he's back. So good for Cole Holcomb. Roman Wilson has been activated, had a hamstring injury. We basically saw a couple months back, Mike Tomlin was so dismissive of Roman Wilson, it wasn't even funny. I mean, he acted like this man was a distant relative that he didn't even know, that he didn't even want to talk about. And Roman Wilson's back on the practice field. Now, will that help? I don't know. To me, I want to go down the route to say that it will, because I want to be proven right. I was one of those guys in the preseason that said Roman Wilson could be the wide receiver number 2 for the Steelers, that he could help. He has literally given the Steelers nothing, absolutely nothing this year. So I was wrong, and I want to be right. Dag nabbit, get Roman Wilson out there. But to be honest with you, I'd be lying if I thought he was going to add anything. Even if he gets a helmet on Saturday to play in this football game, which I doubt that that's going to happen, I just don't see him helping the Steelers this particular year. It's been an absolute bust up to this point on Roman Wilson. Logan Lee is back, had a calf injury. He won't get a helmet either. He's limited in practice, where Roman Wilson was full practice. But Logan Lee, at least he's back out there, which is a good thing. On the Bengals side, Orlando Brown is playing with a broken leg. No, you didn't mishear what I said, that he has a broken leg, apparently in 2 different spots, which is wild to think that somebody's out there playing on a broken leg. But he is, and he said it was one of those things where his leg was fused together, and it's a tricky situation, but he didn't give up any sacks last week to Denver. He came back. He had been out for a little bit. He comes back, played well against Denver, and Denver, as you know, has some guys that can rush the passer. Orlando Brown came back, played well, and they needed him to play well because they've struggled. And even Orlando Brown hasn't played great all year, but he's played pretty good, and he had a real good game against the Broncos. So that's something to keep an eye on. He's limited in practice, but I guess you would be if you got a broken leg, but here we are. Chase Brown did not practice. I'm not sure that Chase Brown's going to play. We'll see. We'll see. I would assume that he's going to try to do everything humanly possible to play, but we just don't know with Chase Brown. He has not practiced. We saw him get hurt in that Broncos game, but we'll see about his status. I'm sure it'll be a game-time decision. And then Sam Hubbard has been out with a knee injury. He plays the other defensive end opposite Trey Hendrickson, He hasn't practiced all week either with a knee, so not sure that he's going to move forward there. Now, as far as the matchups in this game, it's tough. It's tough. The Steelers are going to have to play football. The Bengals are playing really, really well over the last month of the season here. Look, strength on strength. Steelers scoring defense. It's 7th in the National Football League. It's starting to slip. I've mentioned it on several podcasts. $160 million defense. It's 7th in scoring defense. That's too high. You got to be in the top 5, and you're paying your defense that kind of money. 20 points a game, but over the last 3 games, it's been 30 points a game. Too much. I'm sorry. That's just too much. Versus the Bengals scoring offense, they're getting 28 points a game. Last 3, they've gotten 30 points a game. So it's going to be, that is the strength versus strength. Who can win? Even the last time the Steelers beat the Bengals put up points, but the Steelers caused turnovers. So we're going to find out what the battle is there. As far as the Steelers' strength versus a Bengals weakness. Look, this isn't like the Steelers' rushing offense isn't just dominating people. But when given opportunities and they stick with it and they're not so predictable when and how they run the football, the Steelers can run it. And they should be able to do it against this Bengals team. Look, the Steelers are still 10th in the National Football League in rushing. I know that probably surprises a ton of people. They're averaging 130 yards a game. I go, that's surprising. And over the last three, even those are three losses, they still got 125. Now, I think against the Bengals, it needs to be above 150 yards a game, just for the simple fact you want to keep the ball out of the Bengals' offense's hands. So, one way to be able to do that, got to run the football. And I think the Steelers, I know they have the mindset, but can Arthur Smith come up with the imagination? Can he come up with the ways and set up plays? Too many times he's just calling plays versus setting up plays. You call one play to set up another. I talked about it against the Chiefs in the first half alone. He ran a running play, the exact thing, only he ran it twice to the right, twice to the left, same formation, same position group. Everything about it was the exact same. I'm like, you can't do that in the first half of a football game in the National Football League. You're just not going to be able to do it. Teams know what you're doing, and the Chiefs did. That's what I'm talking about, imagination. And look, the Bengals' rush defense is 21st. They're giving up 128 yards a game. This should be right in the Steelers' wheelhouse. We should be able to run the ball when we want to, how we want to beat the Cincinnati Bengals. Now, as far as the Steelers' weakness against a strength, I think this one is pretty obvious. The Steelers' pass defense is 23rd in the National Football League. Pathetic. Again, $160 million. Your pass defense is 23rd in the National Football League. That is absolutely unacceptable. Blame whoever you want. We don't need to get into that. All we need to talk about is how pathetic that is, giving up 226 a game. Over the last three, 262. Too much. Too much. So it's just not acceptable to me. As far as the Bengals pass offense, number one. Number one in the National Football League, getting 274 a game, 287 over the last three. They threw for a ton of yards against the Steelers the last time we played. But again, like I mentioned, the Steelers were able to turn them over. That was a way to win the football game. So I expect the Bengals to still put up yards against the Steelers. It's, can the Steelers tackle in space? Can they do enough? Are you going to double, change some things up on that side of the ball? The last time they played, they doubled Jamar Chase, and he got a big play late, a big 60-yard pass play late. But for the most part, they kept Chase under control, and they just said, T. Higgins, go win the game. It was where they had a philosophy of putting Joey Porter Jr. on Higgins. We double Chase and deal with the results. I think the Steelers got to employ the same kind of thing. Do the same thing. Joey Porter, stop grabbing, be better, cut routes off, be physical. It's going to be tough. I understand. I mean, you don't shut those kind of receivers down and that kind of a quarterback down. You don't do that. But you can try to keep them under control. I think the Steelers got to do the same type of thing. If they don't, they're going to be in some trouble. They're going to be in some trouble. All right. Now, the outcome of this, look, again, the game is in Pittsburgh. Everything is on the line for the Bengals. They got to win. They got to win to be able to get into the playoffs. For the Steelers, everything not necessarily on the line. Now, a couple of things. They can win the division if Baltimore happens to lose to Cleveland, which that game would end right before the Steelers game starts. So the Steelers could possibly have some motivation there that they would get a home playoff game. Okay. They also have motivation is they could be the 5 seed versus the 6 seed. There's motivation. Also, motivation is we need to get the stench off of losing 3 straight games and go into the playoffs feeling a little bit better about ourselves. I'm not going to say feel good, but at least feel better about ourselves. All those are motivation to go win the football game. Another motivation might be, hey, I'd rather go into the football game rested, and we're not going to play our starters, especially if Baltimore wins and they win the division. Doesn't matter who or where we play in the playoffs. We need to be rested. That's another avenue to go, should you say. That's kind of the avenue that I think they should take. no chance to win the division, rest everybody and just go into the playoffs and just say we need everybody as healthy as possible. A lot of people disagree with me, have said so. I totally understand both sides of it. That's just the route that I would go. As far as the coaching is concerned, Mike Tomlin is still a better coach than Zach Taylor. I don't care what anybody says. Hate Mike Tomlin all you want. In this coaching matchup, he is the better coach. As far as the history, look, the Steelers have dominated the Cincinnati Bengals over the years, period, point blank. Now, no Bengals fans are going to want to point to more recent history. Well, you can. The Steelers have won 3 in a row and 4 or 5. So there's that too. Look, I get it. Bengals are a better franchise than what they have been traditionally. Clearly they are. But when it comes to the Pittsburgh Steelers, you haven't climbed that mountaintop just yet. You just haven't. And again, over the last 5 games, you've won 1. That kind of and regardless of who's in or who's out, I don't want to hear all that nonsense about, well, Joe Burrow was out. Who was the quarterback for the Steelers? None of those guys in some of those games are even on the Steelers roster anymore. So stop the nonsense. As far as the rosters are concerned, again, this one's tough because the roster that the Bengals have so much more as far as the skill position players on offense are so much better than the Steelers. It's not even funny. But you could say the same thing as far as an entire defense of the Steelers is so much better than what the Bengals possess. It's not even funny. So to me, and again, you talk about offensive lines, I'm going to even say the Steelers' offensive line is a little bit better than what the Bengals is. Now, we know as Steeler fans, our offensive line isn't great, but I still think it's better than what the Bengals possess. So having said all of that, the roster, as far as I'm concerned, goes to the Steelers. They got a little bit better of a roster. Now, as far as the matchups, we kind of broke that down a little bit. This is the Steelers defense and the Bengals offense. And to me, I think the matchup goes to the Steelers because the Steelers have shown that they can score and do whatever they want to a Cincinnati defense. Where when we played the first time, the Steelers did enough on defense. Although the Bengals went up and down the field, they had a ton of yards throwing, although a lot of that was after they were down 17 points. But the Steelers turned them over. That's why I give them the edge, is because they have been able to find ways to get to cause turnovers to the Bengals, to get after them a little bit. So as far as the matchup is concerned, yeah, the matchups within the game, I give that advantage to the Steelers. Now, as far as the outcome, again, I don't think either team gets away from each other unless the Steelers happen to rest their starters. If the Steelers rest their starters, which at this point in time, it doesn't seem like that's something that's going to happen. If they do, Cincinnati will blow them out. Period. End of story. If they don't, and the Steelers go after this one, I think they go after it with everything they got, which that would lead to, we've seen this before, though. A Mike Tomlin team loses 3 games in a row, and then they come out like a house of fire on that 4th game, especially with the game being at home. But the Bengals are really good. I think the outcome, if everybody's playing, the Pittsburgh Steelers win 34-33. Boz late. And you know the Steelers got the advantage in the kicking game, especially after last week. The Bengals don't even want to kick a field goal. Heck, they don't even want to kick an extra point at this point. So give them the advantage. So I appreciate everybody, man. Thank you guys again, as always, for tuning in. Remember, like, follow, subscribe, hit those comments, and always hit the notification bell. And remember, our memberships are out. So you guys are absolutely going to love the stuff that we do on the membership side of things. Make sure you guys sign up. Until next time, we appreciate you. We love you. Aloha.